Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the JESS MARSHALL Podcast. This week, I'm having on owner, founder of Harper Belmont Media, my good buddy. Met him through rugby, Ryan Harper. We're going to talk about a whole fuck ton of stuff. Hope you like it. I think you will. Stay tuned. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the JESS MARSHALL Podcast. Wow. Mark that swipe. Bring it.
So yesterday we were having a meeting about how bad I am at sales, and I just am really not good at it.
Step one is admitting you have a problem.
Admitting you have, ladies and gentlemen, camera,
jury,
I am not good at sales. But what's funny about that is that meeting started, hey, some motivation is like, you know what? I actually probably should possibly run my business like an actual company and actually focus on sales. And then later that night, I went to a meetup, a real estate meetup where TJ goes, and he's been on your podcast. Yeah. And just sitting there, and I don't think it was anything he said, but it was just the follow up of our meeting and trickling in there and him talking about his goals. I was like, you know what? I need to get off my ass and start selling and start marketing. So I'm actually working on an email right now, like awesome. A marketing email to send out to everybody. And this is probably a bad start because I love to do bad stuff. But I'm actually going to say, hey, I'm really bad at sales. and what I'm pointing out is I'm not good at, doing the puffing the chest, look at me, look at all the stuff I do.
You don't have to do that.
Well, it's just there's people.
So I wouldn't start your email out that way.
Okay.
I would start it out with, I assume you're going to be sending this out to a lot of people all at one time.
15.
Okay. Hey, it's Ryan here.
1,000.
Wow. Hope you're great.
Yeah.
Just wanted to touch base as, I've really started to be able to put my team together over at the media company and wanted to let you know a few things that we're working on. Don't start out by self-deprecating. Save that. But
that's my go-to is instead of doing this, I like to self-deprecate.
But you don't have to do either.
Do you think it's because my parents don't love me?
I think your parents do love you.
They do.
I don't know. I mean, do you think I'm good at sales?
Yeah.
Do I beat my chest though and stand around and go, look how good I am?
You do for like me, you do. Like you do better sales for my company than I do.
Well, I believe in your company. I was the first investor in your company for a fucking reason.
But you will go to the mattresses. You'll go to the mat about us and our services.
So you sold me. And it's quite possible I'm the hardest guy to sell. Very, very possible.
But my sell is through a conversation of what do you need, how do we get there, versus convincing somebody.
And you should never.
And I don't want to convince.
You should never have to convince anybody.
Yeah. You
present them with, hey, this is what I do, this is how I do it, and then this is how much it costs.
Mm-hmm.
This is my client list of happy clients. They've written me reviews. Reviews are what they are. Now people have bots writing reviews for them. Reviews don't matter at all anymore. So you can say, look, this was my first client, Jess. We took him from 0 to, in June of 2022, he had 141,000 views of Reels on Instagram, which is a completely saturated platform. Mm-hmm. And over the last 28 days, he's had 1.06 million views on his TikTok micro content. That's all you have to say. So here's the thing. When you're addressing someone and you want their business, you have to be assertive and confident, but not cocky or arrogant.
Yeah.
And they don't want you to say, hey, I'm not good at sales and all that. They want you to come at them with, here's what I do. And I think that I can really help your business.
Yeah.
And we can start small and see what you think. You have to have realistic expectations. So you say you're not good at sales, but you did something with me when we sat down the 2 times that we spent 3 hours at Kenwell. We sat down, you set very realistic expectations, and you told me things I did not know. Then I went home, because I took notes like I always do when we're talking. I went home and I did my own searches off of Google about what you told me, and they were true, such as YouTube is the second biggest search engine on the web. I didn't know that. You asked me, what are you doing right now to promote yourself? And I put out a bunch of things and plans that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And you looked at, and you've been doing this on Facebook. And then you were honest with me about that platform. And I think that your candor there was proven and is proven.
Yeah.
And so,
because I remember that like 2 years ago talking about how it's a dying platform. It's where content goes die. And this is coming from somebody 3 to 4 years ago. I was on it 8 hours a day.
Absolutely, you were.
For Propelio.
Live and drives were getting thousands of views.
All the time.
Yep.
Well, just for the company, for myself, all of it, the interaction, the engagement. But I'm barely on it because maybe I'm a boomer. I don't know. But I have no ability to function on Facebook anymore. Well, I just don't know how it works.
Yeah, it's definitely for skews to the older demographic. They know how it works.
I don't know if they do, though.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
I'm pretty tech savvy, and I'm like, this UI is screwed.
I think that it's, like we talked about yesterday, I think that there is a need to be relevant.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people do have a little bit of FOMO because they feel like I could 10x my business, which again, if you just 1x'd your business or 2x'd your business, and then you built on that, like people think that you're going to go from 0 to 100 in no time.
Yeah.
And what's crazy, when we had Nick Gurley on the podcast, that housing and real estate data analysis, he said, there's no 0 to 100 overnight. And most tech companies, because he said tech is going to crash. They're laying people off left, right, and center, which is causing these massive problems in Salt Lake, Boise, Austin, etc. Tons of these tech companies lose money hand over fist for like 15 years.
Yeah.
And they've got these massive deficits on their ledgers with their investors. They just keep pouring money into it because if they do hit on an Uber, the sky's the limit. So, people have this unrealistic expectation about, okay, if I start posting or I hire someone to help me be relevant on social, or I hire someone to help me produce a podcast, and it doesn't work in 2 months or 6 months, I'm out.
Or in 2 episodes.
And I think it's just because everyone's got this addiction to that dopamine kick where, I turn my phone over, and even if half my text messages are negative, I still have this many text messages.
One thing, because I want to provide value for you, that I just came across, it was a Gary Vee thing on TikTok. And I think it's relevant for this conversation, but just also for your edification, is the early days of like the Facebook, like social media 1.0 was about follower count. It's about, hey, I'm following you because of you. And what TikTok, with social media 2.0, it's about the following the content. So like instead of the relevancy is not so much following the person, but following the content they do. So if I'm on TikTok and I watch a woodworking video, I don't even know who the person is, but TikTok is going to know that, and they're going to probably show me more woodworking videos versus like, oh, here's this hot person, and I start following this hot person. Well, TikTok is just, instead of, they're going to sprinkle in more of that singular hot person, but they're also going to show me more hot people laterally. But again, though, it's less about the person following and more about the subject matter, which is, it's a new concept. So like, that's why with you and if you're doing roofing, or if we're doing podcasts, we're doing technology, we're doing crypto, that's, oh, look at that. Hey, are you doing a social media thing? Always.
Just thinking about it. I mostly just wanted to get the cowboy hat.
The cowboy hat. I'm a hat guy. I'm a hat guy now.
Welcome to Texas, bitches.
Look at that. Influencer fatigue. Are we done with influencers? I think that's kind of what we're talking about, where it's if I like watching a couple build a house about content about them building the house, I don't necessarily give a shit about them. It's the process of them building the house.
Yeah, greater demand for authentic engagement driven by millennials and Gen Z. And a lot of millennials and Gen Z have a pretty serious DIY, strand to the fabric of their makeup, right?
Yeah, and I don't know about authentic though. I don't know if it's driven by millennials and Gen Z, because again, they're the same people that gave that 15-year-old girl like 200 million followers.
Yeah, I mean, I think authentic.
It's the pendulum. Like people.
Oh, the pendulum.
That.
Yeah,
yeah, that's a good point, man. And I don't know. Authentic means something different to everybody. Authentic is going to be different to a 15-year-old than it is to a 50-year-old.
Well, yeah, because authentic and a 15-year-old is trying to become the person they aspire to be,
Right.
whereas authentic to a 50-year-old is just being who they be.
Yeah, and a lot of
That should be
life
a quote.
experience that
Jeez.
should be. Run that back. Make that a micro clip. Back to the sales approach. Every person in sales has their own style, their own approach. I prefer, if you read a lot of Robert Greene like I do, and you start to really get granular on understanding the person that you're relating to, and you probably don't want to work with someone who wants a transactional relationship.
I don't.
You probably want to work with people who want a relational type of setup, and so you can qualify them right there. If the first question out of someone's mouth is, well, how much is it? I was telling this guy, I was at a barbecue over the weekend, telling him, man, figured out this way to solve my heartburn. I've struggled with this heartburn since I was 13 years old. So it's just bugged the shit out of me.
Daily Prilosec?
Had to. Yeah,
I do as
sometimes
well.
a save shot. Remember Zantac? Now that Zantac's getting sued into the dark ages because there's carcinogens in that.
Mm-hmm.
There's got a class action. So I'm telling him all this. I know he struggles too. He's always complaining about it. Whenever at a barbecue, hey, has anybody got it? Like he won't carry his own. He asks other people, like, what, grow the fuck up, bro. And I said, man, you should try this. Like, I don't take any pills.
Yeah.
I never get it.
What
I
is it?
drink this in the morning. It's called Get Off Your Acid. And I'm working on, I DM'd the guy who developed it. He DM'd me right back. He lives in Newport Beach, but he comes to Texas all the time because why the fuck wouldn't you?
Right.
First question out of his mouth, well, how much does it cost? And I've got years on this kid. And so how much does it cost is certain. I'm not made of money. But I don't need that next pair of Air Jordans if I don't wear Air Jordans, but I don't need that next Carhartt flannel shirt. If I'm going to spend this money over here to never have to deal with this again in a natural way, that blows my mind. So finding people who value, but that's way easier said than done, and it takes time. So you're going to talk to a lot of people who just want to know, well, how fast? Is this an easy button? Do I have to do anything, and how much is it going to cost? And costs money. It's not fast.
Yeah.
It's like anything else. If it's easy, it's not worthwhile. If it's worthwhile, it's not easy. And anytime anyone can disprove that axiom, please DM me, because I've never been able to disprove that statement.
Well, I think when what you led with is a very impactful statement in the sense that if the first question is how much is it, just walk. It's okay. Never mind. It's like, well, I'm just wasting my time.
Yeah.
And I know that's kind of like a harsh reality, but I led with, I'm not good at sales. Like, to me, it's like, okay, this conversation's not worth it.
Don't even lead with that. If I read I'm not good at sales, then I'm automatically like, oh, this guy's playing the sympathy card. Now it's honest and it's who you are.
Yeah.
So don't say that. Just don't be good at sales, and don't be a salesman. Be an educator.
Yeah. Well, one thing I was going to say is like, okay, and because after talking to you and talking through this now and just thinking about it and picking up on a few things you said, it's not that I'm not good at sales. I'm not good at transactional sales, because if you look at the clientele I have, they're all long-term clientele.
That's right, man.
They're all like, everybody I work with has been way over 6 months.
Absolutely.
Month in, month out. And I don't have
and has known you for years.
Yeah. And the only one the only client I've lost per se was because they were taking a break because they were having a kid.
Yeah.
And he's probably coming back on here today, tomorrow, this week or something. So, but again, I think it's what you said. It's like having that conversation and being the real expectations.
Well, let me ask you a question. On the converse, so the opposite, if you were good at sales, would you start your email with, I'm a badass salesman, how are you?
See, that's a good point.
And so
I think
just
here's
be
the thing
you without
yeah.
talking about you, because when you're looking to turn a long-term relationship into business, it's all about, what do you need? Let's see if it's a good fit. If you're not there financially, maybe just table it. I'll talk to you at Christmas.
Yeah.
If you are there financially, but you're not convinced that what you see everyone else doing, I think what it
is I'm currently, everybody, we've talked about this, or I've talked about this. Everybody has imposter syndrome, and it's not an imposter syndrome for me. What it is right now, there's a guy I know who I'm friendly with. We're friends. Like, and I support him and I love what he's doing and he's kicking ass. But he's really good at the self-promotion. He's really good at this. I did this. We did this. This is my client. This is what they did. Da 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 da. And by him being relentless, and I don't mean that disparaging, I mean that positive, being a relentless with that, he's been able to grow and scale and have a fairly great marketing company.
That I don't think know of that he tells you.
Right. Everyone's full of shit. I get that.
Divide by 2 and round down.
Right. Or just they don't have anything.
Here's the thing, man.
But again, but I just want to make sure I'm not, because I'm not trying to be disparaging. I think it's great that what he's doing. It's just there's a little bit of a jealousy in me because I just don't have that in me. I don't have that. I got to be on stage. Everybody look at me, look at me. I can be on stage. I can be in front of a video. Like, this is the second podcast day. I'm doing another interview thing right after this.
The everybody look at me, let me tell you how good I am, let me tell you what I have, how well I do, turns a lot of people off. It turns me off.
Yeah.
Same. That's an immediate unfollow to me. So why would you go after people who like that approach when you're not going to want to work with them in the first place?
That's so true.
Go be you.
We need to do this like once a quarter. I know,
and be the best version of you, right? Yeah. Let's always be improving on ourselves, our fitness level, our nutrition, our mental health, the way we discipline our minds, whether it's through stoicism or the gym or whatever the fuck it is. But then let's go be our best selves, not a fake version, as close to who we really, really are when we're talking to other people about, hey, you're going to trust me with your money. And a lot of the people you're talking to, their business is like a child to them.
Yeah.
And
well, it's like our conversation yesterday. Like, I don't want to have clients that they're having to not eat dinner or not buy the Carhartt flannel shirt to be able to afford my business. Like, I want the person that's like, hey, I know I need to be doing this. I can afford to do this. Let's do this.
I want clients who are like that. Mm-hmm. But who are also like, God damn, the value here is so great that I don't have to go to 3 Forks 4 times this month. Right. I can shut that down, and I'm going to fire up the grill at home, and I've got an eye on the future, like Hormozy says on Instagram. Mm-hmm. It's I always say this to my people. It is not about today. It's about 10 years from now, which means it's all about what I do today, because I'm not getting to that goal in 10 years if I'm sitting around here spending everything I make, living over my means. So if it does take cutting back to grow someone's business and you're able to say, hey, I want you to look at these analytics. Since I started Harper Belmont full-time, here's what my first client is doing, and here are the current numbers, and you can compare that to the first numbers, which were fucking 0.
I can't find it.
You know, my numbers were 0 when we started, and we're about to hit 2 years. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, you just want a client who values value. If they got to go get a loan to afford your service because they believe in your service that much, you should want that client too.
So everybody
needs skin in the game.
Right. Well, it's something you said, and it just triggered a memory because you were talking about Hormozy. I don't know his name.
Yeah, or
whatever his name is.
Yeah,
he was recently on Ryan Pineda's podcast, which is cool. But he had said something, and the reason it's come to mind is because TJ actually touched on it last night in his presentation. Was everybody likes to think that the game of life is the generational wealth, where hey, you go to the casino and then you leave the casino with your money. But it's much more like the game of life is much more like a poker table, where you're at the poker table, you're playing poker, you're making money, but when you're done, you just push the chips in because you're not taking them with you. And one thing in TJ's presentation last night, he was talking about generational wealth, and I never heard this before, but he was saying that he thinks generational wealth is a myth because if you look at the stats, and I'm going to butcher this, so please don't quote me on it, but like 70% of second generation millionaires lose all the money. 90% of third generation millionaires lose all the money. So it's a very select few that stay in that upper echelon with generational wealth. Because what really happens is 2-3 generations out, the cycle starts over.
Yeah, and that's got to have a lot to do with personal discipline.
I think it goes back to that whole hard times make hard men make easy times make easy men.
Yeah.
Is that
soft? Yeah.
Is that relative?
Yeah. Hard men make easy times make soft men make hard times.
That's what it was. Yeah.
And there's it's the cycle. That axiom has proven true all the way back. I mean, if you look at Marcus Aurelius' son, Marcus Aurelius,
is that a rapper?
Letters by Marcus Aurelius, yeah. Pretty much the founder, the OG of Stoicism, Marcus Aurelius, who could have anyone killed, who could buy anything, who could invade any country at any time, and he realized that absolute power corrupts absolutely, and he, in his journals that he never expected anyone to read, is writing about how important it is to temper, your desires, to temper your behavior as a person. That's just important. His son, who was depicted in the movie Gladiator, Ryan Holiday, was on Rogan 2-3 weeks ago explaining this. He said that the way that Joaquin Phoenix played Commodus was he underplayed it. Marcus Aurelius' son was that terrible of a person, that horrible. And you see a lot of these really great men. Winston Churchill, same deal. His kids, not good people. So you have the generational wealth. You have probably a very hard driving person, or maybe a couple, a man and wife possibly. They went out there, they figured something out, and they broke through, and they created all this wealth. And then that created a very, very easy path for their children. And then their children started to veer off of this hardcore, we get up at 5, we put it in, rain or shine, they're veering off. Then they have kids, they veer off. Then all of a sudden, everyone's squandering and wasting everything. I think TJ's onto something.
Have you heard of the book, The Fourth Turning?
No.
Sohail, I just sent you a link on Slack. I haven't fully gone through all of it, but it's basically the fourth turning. It's the cycle prophecy where basically it's more or less the hard men, the easy times, whatever. Yeah. But you have these different. The fourth turning is you have these different generations where you have the hero generation, and then you have like the arty generation, but then you have at the very end you have the chaotic that screws everything up generation. Yeah. And I think what they were prophesizing is we're in that cycle where we're at the tail end of the chaos, which is about to start. Again, I haven't read it, so I don't know.
Almost a renaissance of the hard ass.
Basically, it's saying it's basically a long-winded way of saying history repeats itself.
Yeah, and it does.
And what we're prophesizing is there's going to be some sort of event, maybe it's the war in Ukraine explodes, who knows, that creates a situation that we have to start the cycle over. Yeah. And we go back to the hard men and the hero generation and all that.
Check out this
quote.
I
mean,
what is this?
Check out this quote.
Yeah, sometime before the year 2025, America will pass through a great gate in history, commiserate with the American Revolution, Civil War, and twin emergencies of the Great Depression and World War II. So, yeah, that's what's by 2025. Mm-hmm. So we're right there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can see it.
Gotta love it when you quote books that you haven't read.
Or that you're reading. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, I haven't heard of it, and I'm gonna add it to my Audible list. No, you see it right now just in we got everybody bitching and moaning and belly aching about fuel prices.
Yeah.
Because the easiest thing in the world, and this is proven on the internet, what is most clickbait at its core? It's negative.
Yeah.
If I can get you pissed off, I can get way more clicks than if I've got something positive direction to point you to. So everyone's bitching and moaning like little children about fuel prices, but no one wants to work. And the people who do work, they don't have time to bitch and moan about it. They're just like, fuel prices are up, I'm going to go make more money. And that should be the attitude across the board. The I can do it, the self-sufficient, the I don't need a handout, the fuck you if you don't think I can do this, I'm going to shove that right down your throat with your own teeth. That is a thing of the past, and it must come back. And it will. I have that attitude. You have that attitude. And it's pervasive. When you have that energy and you're around people they start to go, you know what? There is a different way of thinking. There is a different approach to life than the, oh, poor me. Oh my God.
Right.
I got to be locked down. Oh, fuel prices. No.
Well, there's several things there to unpack. So like, one of them was hey, fuel prices high. Let's just go work our ass off to make more and do more. What's funny is in this, you'll love this, is like a lot of the Democratic left, their thing is like, well, just don't drive, don't drive as much. You, an American citizen, need to, if you're complaining about high gas prices, well, it's because you're driving too much. It's because the demand's too high. You need to stay at home. Whereas if none of them are doing that, they're still taking their private jets. They're still doing their things.
Yeah, Newsom, in the middle of what is supposed to be a revived travel lockdown, is vacationing in Montana.
Of course he is, because it's do as I say, not as I don't.
That's right. Yeah. Here's the thing about what's happened in the last 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
For a long time, we've known there's been these sectors of our society who had our trust for a long time. The first sector that lost our trust were like preachers, televangelists. Right. Because when the internet came out, and even before that, when you had like Inside Edition, people following people around, they started figuring out, oh, this is a human man. He's not this anointed prophet who walks on water, who's perfect and never looks at women and never makes mistakes. So their credibility, for the most part, if you're a man of God and you're preaching from the stage and you're revered by those who are watching you are not educated as to the fact that you're a human being. There was then the group politicians.
Yeah.
Reagan. Oh my God. And Reagan, as me and Rich Warfield have discussed 2 times now, is the one who pretty much put into effect that military-industrial complex that now we can't pull our own ass out of.
But I will interject a little bit, not about the military-industrial complex. I would argue that the trust factor with politicians, some would say, oh, it ended with Clinton, with the Monica Lewinsky, and then some would say, no, it ended with Bush, with the with the war in Iraq,
weapons of mass destruction,
and then then it was Obama just because it's Obama.
Right.
I would argue it's more likely Trump. I think brought a lot of it just because at least with all those other presidents, no matter how you feel about them or whatever you feel, you always had this notion that at least they were being presidential, at least they were doing what they thought was right for the country, or you could at least lie to yourself. I think a lot of them have been criminals and crooks for a long time. But in my opinion, like even with Bush, it's like, okay, let's have this illegal war in Iraq, or I don't know. I'm not versed enough on it to have a real opinion.
There were no weapons of mass destruction.
There wasn't.
That's what we were sold.
But
Colin Powell lied to the American people at the behest of Rumsfeld and Bush.
But you could at least lie to yourself and say, well, at least I think he was doing what he thought was best for the country. Obama, same thing. But with Trump, it's because, in my opinion, because he didn't have that presidential pedigree, and it's just like, it's like well,
he's a very petty guy.
Well, if an elementary school attacked him, you don't swat at the fly. You just let it be its thing.
Right.
And he had to fight back on everything, and I think that's what.
Well, he's a fighter, and he is a disruptor, and he's not a politician,
right? But I think he really screwed up our political structure.
I think there's a lot of people who really like his approach. Well, I'm not necessarily a fanboy of Donald Trump.
But here's the
Donald
problem.
Trump lost the election because of the first debate. He wouldn't listen to his team.
Mm-hmm.
He engaged in attack and walked all over Biden. And the man has certain things that make him pretty good at some things, and he has some other things where his ego just overwhelms him. The problem to me with what you just said is you just described families that are almost like these royal families, and I use the word pedigree, and that's not what this country was founded on. This country was founded on farmers, people for religious reasons, people for economic reasons. We just passed Independence Day. I don't even like calling it July 4th. It's motherfucking Independence Day.
Well, and actually it was July 2nd.
And they came over here.
That's when they actually signed it.
And they said, no more, and bring it the fuck on. And they took a huge risk, and they were massively exposed because they said no to their motherland. We will not pay your taxes. Bring it. And they beat them. And they had no protection, and they had no affiliations, and it's a damn good thing they had an ocean on either side of them, because they would have been overrun. And damn good thing that there wasn't much north or much south when they settled the United States of America, because very exposed, very undermanned. But the myth is that...
But there's also a lot of luck there, because the only reason that the Britons didn't just destroy the 13 colonies is because they also had all their shit in India they were going through. They had all the shit they were going on with Europe.
Yes.
So they were trying to do like the Russians in World War II, or not the Russians, the Germans in World War II, having a multi-pronged, having too many fronts. So the Britons UK had too many fronts. And it's not that we necessarily won. It's we survived past their point of putting up with us.
They overextended their bandwidth.
But that was Washington's strategy. His strategy was never to have this massive win. His strategy was, we don't have to win, we just have to survive.
Well, yeah, what's that famous quote, the sun rises and sets? It used to say on the Roman Empire. Then the sun rises and sets on the British Empire, because the Brits were everywhere.
From the Indies to the Americas.
Yes, and they overextended themselves. They overshot their own bandwidth, and they thought they could just come over here and say, shoo, fly. And the problem is that when you have...
Well, all those taxes were to try to pay for their wars in Europe and India.
Well, yes, and many conscripted soldiers sent into battle. And if you don't believe, if you're not defending your lives, your fortune, and your sacred motherfucking honor, and you're just being paid, or you were in prison and this was your ticket out, you don't think that if you're going up against someone who's defending their lives, their fortune, and their sacred honor, that he's going to kill 10 of you? Because you ain't.
For years, and this is a horrible idea, but I love it, especially in the heyday of Iraq, when it's like, oh, we've been here for so much, or Afghanistan, we've been here so long, what do? I was like, well, we have a huge prison system. Why don't we get some of these lifers and offer an opportunity to jump out of a plane into Somalia, into Kuwait, into a war zone like Afghanistan or Iraq. And it's like, hey, there you go. Have at it. Survive or don't survive. I don't care. But and I know that's horrible and it's evil, but it's like, because they're going to, if you throw a serial killer into a nest, they're just going to kill a lot of innocent people.
That's the wildest thing I've heard you say.
I know, but I'm telling you, it's a horrible idea, but it's an idea that I used to have.
Yeah, no.
And it's evil because there's a lot of innocence in war zones.
And innocence in prison.
Well, no doubt about that. In fact, there's a person, I believe, they're second in command of this great country, who's put more innocents in jail than any other single human on the face of the planet.
I don't know about that. I know what you're referring to.
That's not a. Is that not a factual claim?
I don't know. But is she the one that arrested everybody, or is she
prosecuted?
She's prosecuted. She's Attorney General. Yes, but you could say the same thing about Giuliani.
Yeah. I think
again, all these people, not all these people, that's definitive, but so many of the politician class, they use their power at that time to get more power. So for her to lock all those people up, it was most likely to pass along her journey to become the VP of the United States.
Well,
everybody loves her as that.
I don't think you become a great politician by, if you're a person of faith. In the scriptures, it calls the Holy Spirit a still small voice. A lot of other people, secular people, maybe they're not religious, call that your conscience. Mm-hmm. I think that a lot of politicians, their conscience has been seared, and they're so focused on advancing their own brand that they will blow right through what they know to be wrong ethically because they can get away with it. And I've not trusted politicians for a very long time. I'm a libertarian or an independent.
You know how I know you'll never be a politician? What's your favorite color?
Gray or black, probably.
Now ask me.
What's your favorite color?
You know, that's a great question, Jess. And I'll get back to that, but I want to counter that question. Before I answer your question, I want to state that and then they never answer the question.
See, but me.
What's your favorite color, Salil?
I'm not 5 years old, so.
Oh,
wow. Zing. I think the thing back to Trump, you know, whether you love the guy or hate the guy, and that's the effect that he had. He's completely polarized.
Yes.
Our tribalism is massive. And, you know, whoever you want to, that's what Independence Day is all the fuck about, in my opinion. Freedom.
The biggest, the thing that's funny to me is the what I hate most about 2020 was not so much the pandemic subject, whatever, or whatever you want to call it. But for me, it was how much the media and general people lost their fucking minds that I was actually defending Trump. So from 2016, 2019, I was like, yeah, I don't really like this guy. I think he's a joke. I don't like him. But then seeing how much the media would spin every little thing, you're like, this is ridiculous. Y'all are stupid. So I really don't like that about 2020.
Well, so we've said that
because I would much rather have Trump than Biden.
Religious leaders lost their credibility, and I'm not just talking about televangelists. I'm talking about like what's that yoga guy? What's that hot yoga? Bikram yoga.
Bikram.
Yeah.
That guy was drilling everything that walked. So you know it doesn't really matter what your religious leanings are, what your political leanings are. This applies to everyone, and I don't take sides there. In my opinion, all politicians and everyone who works in government should have a very limited time they work in government.
Yeah.
And what most people don't understand, and they'll say, well, everyone loves to hang everything around the neck of the executive branch. The legislative branch needs term limits and needs them badly.
Well,
and then you've got all your operational folks. So you got folks working in the CIA, the FBI, the Pentagon, all of these the alphabet gang that are in there. They're lifers too, and they have way more influence than people realize.
Well, so let's take recent news: Supreme Court, Roe v. Wade, overturning, etc. People are losing their fucking mind about that, and they're screaming their heads off at the Supreme Court. How could you? How could you? How could you? But yet the last 20, 30 years of Republicans have been screaming that, hey, we're going to stack the court for this very moment. So everyone has known that playbook for 20, 30, and I'm not going to comment on actual abortion.
It's pointless.
It's pointless. Either for or against, it doesn't matter. What I'm saying is everyone knew what the playbook was. And yet, even right now, you've got Biden as president. You've got a stacked Democratic Party in the government. And yet they have, instead of actually acting and putting in legislation for whatever their belief structure is, they would rather just condemn what the Supreme Court did and then send out a campaign notice. Hey, give us more money so we can fight this. Fight it. You've been in office this whole time. Right. You can fight it right. You literally can go to work right now.
Yep.
And I don't know what the solution is. I have a very loose opinion on all of that. Like, I'm a male. I'm not married. I really don't have an opinion.
Ladies, DM me and I'll hook you up.
Jess, you were
I'm pro-choice.
You were just talking about term limits, and we're talking about the Supreme Court. And the reason the founders had lifetime appointments, right, was to theoretically keep political persuasions out of the judiciary.
Yes,
right?
I was not talking about term limits for the Supreme Court.
Right.
Well,
but
so with what Ryan was just saying about Republicans, Democrats not being able to do anything, and Republicans
because the courts were had been stacked.
No, so Ruth Bader Ginsburg, right, had the opportunity when
during Obama,
to step down. She was old and dying,
right?
Okay, and she did not, leading to this. If you are a Democrat, this debacle
Right.
of a stack because Trump goes in and appoints two.
And
very
everybody
young-
at that time was screaming that she should step down.
Right. So why didn't she?
Because she's the hero of the liberal party.
Right.
Yeah,
So
the
a lot of
Democrats
ego
cannot
wrapped up there.
Yeah, ego. And they don't
Ego.
want to. The Democrats are the Republicans. They just like gay
Yeah,
people.
they're-
Again,
yeah.
there is no fucking reason why there should only be two major parties in this country. And the problem is that what ends up happening is we get faced with the lesser of two evils. And it's really, really shitty. Think about if you finally are going to settle down
Right.
and you have two choices. And you've already said you don't like older gals. And they're your only choices, and one's older and one's younger but real ugly. And you have to choose the lesser of two evils. When we vote for president, do we really feel like those two elderly gentlemen are the most qualified gentlemen to make the decisions and have their thumb on the nuke buttons? Or is it just that's the way the game was played and these are our final options? No right-minded board of directors would hire either of those gentlemen as the CEO.
I was just at, the
Chairman of the board.
PwC building in downtown.
Yeah.
I was just at that building yesterday for a meeting. And one of the things that the gentleman we were having a meeting with was talking about how the average age in their and PwC is a massive company nationwide, or actually I think it's global. The average age is like 28. So they're not hiring 40, 50, 60 year olds.
Right.
They're hiring that 20 to, or probably 22 out of college, 22 to 32-year-old era.
Absolutely.
One thing I wanted to bring up, and so I did I texted you something to look up, is the life expectancy of when it was 1776 versus 2022. You could very easily assume that, hey, your life expectancy in 1776 was probably, 40, 50 years old?
Maybe.
Maybe. And what was it? 35?
Hot damn. Yeah, crazy.
So like your life expectancy in during the founding fathers era, they didn't have to
30 years more now, 32 years
they
more.
Didn't have to put a term limit.
True.
Because they're like, you're going to be dead.
True. And there's
tomorrow.
we can't see into the future. If we could see into the future, then we would have known COVID was coming. And back to my point. Just like every comedian, you tie everything together. So preachers and religious, these religious figureheads lost their credibility. Politicians lost their credibility. Mainstream media, let's move to that. Mainstream media loved Trump because
the money.
Now CNN Plus, I don't even know.
1 week.
So can you look up what did CNN Plus?
I think they spent $200 million and it was up for 7 days.
And they had 10,000 subscribers.
And then they canceled it. They just
and they had to bail on it. And they have got to just be pulling their hair out. What do we have to do to get Trump back? Because the hatred for that guy is so polarizing, and it has done a really interesting thing to our country. A lot of people who wanted to be Sweden, they wanted to hang out in the middle on the fence. I've had people on the podcast who I've always voted Republican, but I fucking hate Trump. A couple of them are really good friends of mine. I hate Trump, and so I'm going to vote the other way just because I hate Trump, because he's got a fake tan and because he does mean tweets and because I guess he fucked porn stars.
So like, I don't like to admit this. I don't like to put it out there, so I apologize, Mom, Dad.
Uh-oh.
I actually voted for Hillary in 2016.
Oh, no.
And it was the most, dirty I've ever felt in my life. It makes me cringe. I'm literally feeling, because I just don't like her. But I had such vitriol against a non-polished, like, he's going to be the leader. He's our whatever, our figurehead. Yeah. I just couldn't see it. Still don't see it. Didn't want it. And it was funny because people were like, well, but she's a criminal. She's a crook. I'm like, motherfucker, they're all criminals. They're all crooks. You don't think...
It's a sad commentary on the state of our politics.
I know, right? You don't think Obama has a list of people that their organization has killed? Bush? Like, because, like the Clinton Foundation list.
Right.
This is very Rich
the
Warfield
Bushes are as
conversation.
corrupt as the day is long.
There's theories that the Bush is responsible for JFK.
If you don't think that's true, do a little of your own fucking research. Educate yourself like a grown adult instead of taking the spoon-fed bullshit that you get when you turn on cable television. Because there's all kinds of places to learn that shit.
I will tell you and you, the audience, what I tell my mom. Turn Fox News off. The only news that anybody should be watching, if they're watching at all, is the Crystal and Sagar.
Yes.
Breaking Points.
Breaking Points is right down the middle. They are not beholden to anyone financially. Do you know? So why is there TV? Why do we have TV? TV stations, TV networks, shows. What's the goal? What's the goal? It's a business.
Right.
Right? And the goal of a business is to
make money.
So we got to get as many people watching Grey's Anatomy as possible so that then we know what the demographic is and we can throw some Buick commercials in there.
Yeah.
We can throw some pharmaceutical commercials in there and we can throw some toilet paper commercials in there. Or the NFL, right? The NFL is the biggest reality show on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's breaking their dick off to get the rights to the NFL. And we got beer and trucks and the whole 9 yards, and it is a money-making proposition. If you think that when you turn on cable television news, you're getting the news, you're smoking the best meth ever.
So on that, and I thought this is where you're going, but maybe you don't know this, and maybe I'm making this up as I say it.
Biggest advertisers
in
terms of money?
No.
Oh.
Who owns the rights to the airwaves?
I don't know, actually.
The American government, the U.S. government. So the reason ABC, NBC, CBS, they would have their 1 hour news program was the social contract, or it may have been an actual contract.
An FCC law.
Well, not a law, but like the contract they had to give them rights to the airwaves for 1 hour a night or 1 hour a day or whatever. They needed to produce relevant content for the American people. That was the news. And that was how it was for years and years and years until you had cable with CNN. CNN comes out with entertainment news, and it kind of broke the whole system.
Absolutely. What's the
24/7 hour
what's
news
what's
cycle?
the big fat motherfucker who Rupert Murdoch put in charge of Fox News? Roger
Woodall? No, that's NFL.
Solio, what was that movie? What was that show with Russell Crowe where Russell Crowe puts the fat suit on? He's doing all this weird shit with women. What's his name?
Roger Ailes?
Right, wasn't that his name? Roger Ailes? Think so. Anyways, great show, by the way.
You're not
Unreal.
talking about Rupert?
Well, Rupert Murdoch put him in charge of
Roger
Fox
Ailes.
News. Yeah, Roger Ailes. Big time pervert, his entire goal was to polarize. He went and got Sean Hannity. He brought Sean Hannity up. He made Sean Hannity a star because Sean Hannity is going absolutely counter to everything else they're doing on this other channel.
You're missing a step. Originally, it was Hannity and Combs.
Right.
Because Hannity was the right, Combs was the left. And they loved that. It was kind of like a breaking points. But then they were like, well, we don't really need the alter. Let's just go lean right and get rid of this guy.
Well, and Combs, if you noticed, they kind of put more of a kind of a bigger fella in there in the chair on the right, and kind of a more meek, mild, leaner fella in there on the left. And so it was this. They still have folks on there. Juan Williams goes on there. I haven't watched Fox News in a year and a half, 2 years. I've got all the news off. So. We lost all faith in religious leaders. We lost all faith in politics. Now, maybe a lot of people haven't. I'm saying this is what happened to me. I grew up very religious household. Very, very, very religious household. Next level. It'll be in the book. So this is how I lost faith. So, like I said, you're losing faith. The media, then we get politicians, religious leaders, and now I've lost all faith in the medical community. All of it. Gone because of what's happened over the last two and a half years. And it may be an oversimplification, but again, I think it's an axiom that's very hard to disprove. Follow the money. And whether you believed in the sickness that was, widely publicized and there was so much fear about, or you don't, just the way we operate in terms of our medical system now, it's let me down personally.
So
Big time. And I'm not even talking about the sickness. I'm talking about like, I have a bad knee. So I go to an expert. And move one is, let's cut that fucking thing again. Let's put you're going to be laid up 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Let's cut it. I can fix it. And then we'll rehab you. Move two is, well, let's shoot something in there, right? These are all easy button solutions.
So before we go too far into this, what's your opinion of the police?
Well, I think defunding the police
I'm not talking about defund, but just overall. Because what I would like to potentially throw out there is your view of the medical community could be similar to most people's view of the police.
Yeah, I am not a fan.
Well, because a lot of people are like, oh, all the police are bad, all the doctors are bad. I would argue, no, not all the police are bad, and no, not all the medical doctors are bad. You have a few bad apples.
I'm
over
talking
here.
about conventional medicine.
I understand
more than anything,
but I'm just saying is there are one or two, or not one or two. There's several that are shitty, but there's probably most of them are still good. But they're also humans, because my buddy Tyler is like, he hates doctors, and he goes but he hates them because they have this holier than thou. I went to medical school and I know everything, and he always just berates them in front of them because they don't know what they're talking about.
So I never want to paint anything with a broad brush, because
Right.
I feel like that turns me off when other people do it.
Yeah.
There are good people who work in professions that I've lost all trust in. Good people who mean well, who try really hard. I also think that it's totally immature of adults to think, oh, I can go completely trust and blindly just follow and I'll be fine. They took an oath. They're good to go. Do they buy boats with the oath? Do they buy houses with the oath? Do they buy cocaine with the oath? Do they buy nice cars with the oath? They buy it all with money.
Yeah, but
So there are good people in the ministry. There are good people in media.
Yeah, but
there are good people in politics. Very few, in my opinion.
Do you know why most doctors have huge houses?
I mean, most doctors are almost financially illiterate. So, no, because they look at a W-9 and write them a nice big old piece of credit.
So if you're a doctor and you screw me up, I can sue you for pretty much everything you own except your house. So what doctors do, the reason broad brush, the reason, a main reason factor for them to have this giant house that they've had
Sink a lot
historically,
of their assets in there.
it's so they can secure their assets.
Yeah.
Because if they're ever wiped out, well, they still get to keep the house, and then after that the dust settles, they can liquidate the house and start over.
Yeah, I think that more my point than
I know
more
that was
than
just
anything,
a little random factoid.
I believe that makes complete sense. I think more of a point than anything is, it's very rare now that you can sit down with someone who might not share the same. I put a reel up on my Instagram. Salil, if you can find that, it was Robert Greene. He put it on, I think it was either on Robert Greene Quotes on Instagram, or it was
This
on
is one of your stories?
Yeah, and he's talking about when you go meet someone, the propensity now, the tendency now is just to completely, I need to pigeonhole you immediately. Who did you vote for? Where are you at on the environment? Are you a Republican? Are you a Democrat? Are you this? Are you that? And instead of, hey, I want to sit down with you and I actually want to see it from your viewpoint. I actually do. And I'm going to do less talking than I do listening. And it's so immature to just immediately go tribal, in my opinion. And so a lot of people like to think that we're evolved. It's hilarious that in politics they call it. It's on my stories, and it might be gone by now. It was yesterday.
Oh, it was a story.
Yeah.
This tribalism is, I think it's just really, I think it's really dumb. Yeah, it disappeared. You can play that badass rugby clip though. I like to greet Thursdays because they're very busy. Boom.
God, that
Motherfucking
hurts.
sit down, bitch.
That hurts. That hurts.
Critical thinking. Like, I'm going to educate myself. I'm going to come up with my own opinion. What is that? That takes time. That takes effort. And it's not easy. I can't go click on the TV. I might have to go find breaking points. Right. It's easier now than it ever has been, though, because we all have smart TVs and you can put YouTube up there and throw breaking points and go, okay, that seems way less biased. And so back to the mainstream media, they're running a business there.
Yeah, but real quick, just you're running too fast. We got to slow it down. Even breaking points, I watch them religiously. I pay them my $10 a month so I can get the full feed. YouTube knows I watch them all the time. Yeah. So my YouTube should always be breaking points. But the last couple weeks, it's not there. And I have to go seek it out for it just popping up.
Yeah.
And it's just like, really, guys? You know what I want. Why don't you just put it up there?
Yeah, a lot of people have pointed at Joe Rogan as this, like, bastion of free thinking. And 5 years ago, Joe Rogan was very thought of as a lib.
Yeah.
He's all about, he's all into drug, let's explore and all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
And it's just hilarious how he just stops for a minute and goes, something is not adding up here. Do you know who Joe Schilling is? The Muay Thai fighter? Similar. Guy smokes weed like a chimney, smokes cigarettes like a chimney. Is Joe Stitch him up Schilling? He's a fucking badass. So Leo, find the video of Joe Schilling knocking a motherfucker
Joe
out in the
Rogan,
bar.
like, it's funny because talking about breaking points, they were just talking about this morning how the past 2 years Rogan has been kind of this bastion for the Republican Party and right wing thinking, he's right wing. But now, like Steve Bannon and them, they're coming out on the attack against Rogan
because he won't have Trump.
He won't have Trump on, and he's like, I don't want any politicians on. What is this?
It was Joe Schilling knocks out guy in bar fight. This guy flexes on him. Wait for it. There's Joe walking at us. Hit him 4 times before he hit the ground.
But why would he do that?
Because the guy talked shit, and then he went like this. He flexed on him like that, and so he dropped him.
That's a little uncalled for.
Are you fucking kidding me?
No.
Yeah, we need to get Molly in here to have another conversation.
There's violence. There's no reason for that.
How about just talk?
There's fucking every reason for it. He talked shit, then he flexed on him like he was going to punch him. You don't do that to a dude who's...
Yeah, but also my biases. I've been bigger than everybody my entire life, and I've never been physically threatened by anybody my entire life.
Ever, huh?
Pseudo once in 7th grade. And I think I talked about the story the other day, but in 7th grade in the locker room, but the guy next to me was like I would assume was in a gang or whatever. He was, like thugged out even at 7th grade. You're like, oh, he's a gangster.
Did he have a teardrop tattoo?
I don't know any of that. I'm just assuming he was a badass.
Mean
whatever.
Streets of Bedford, bro.
Right. Central Junior High. Anyway, he swings and hits me in the locker room one day. And my reaction to that was, okay. And because like until that point, I was a little intimidated. But when it hit, I was like, I didn't really feel anything. And it was almost like my reaction of confusion, like was he like flicking my nose or something, scared him off to where we never had an issue ever again.
Yeah.
Because he was like, oh, fuck.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
I just have no problem with that. And nowadays, you should not be going around doing that to any. You know how many people train now?
Yeah.
In mixed martial arts martial art.
This is my mindset, though. I was still at Bedford. This is like 10 years ago. I was at a karaoke club off of Glade and 121 or something. And I remember there's these 2 drunk dudes, and they were messing with this couple that was on a date. And they were just being over, and I stepped in because, the patriarchy, and you got to protect the fondlings. That was a Sohail joke, sorry. But anyway, I stepped in. I was like, guys, just chill out. They're on a date. Like, just back up. And they did the whole flex. What are you? And again, my reaction was, and this is when I was in shape. I was like, really? You two? Really? And my reaction of confusion scared the shit out of him.
Really? No, I get it. That guy's.
But then again, 10 years ago, I was fucking.
Yeah.
I was always confused to being like on the Dallas Cowboys or something.
Well, yeah, Joe Schilling is not.
Yeah, he's still ripped and all
He's
that.
not. He's not a hug-giving type of fella.
I'm a hugger. Let's love.
No, you're a very nice
Give
guy.
love a shot, bro.
Like you said,
Bro. Let's
our,
love.
Our rugby coach told you had to be a little
The
more
jolly green giant.
Yeah, said you were too nice and jolly, and people are just. You're just fucking
Dude, one of my favorite hits.
Motherfuckers.
One of my favorite times, we were playing the Austin Blacks. Is that their team?
Yeah.
The Huns or whatever?
They have the Huns and the Blacks.
It was one of them.
Yeah.
And I remember laying out this, I don't know, 6 foot tall, blonde hair, blue eyed, looked like he could probably be a model or something. And just like, it was right after he passed the ball. And I just laid him. I mean, almost decleating, you know, and I was like, "Oh, my bad. I'm so sorry. He's all, it's all good, man. Good hit." And that was one of my favorite times.
The big hit right when the offload, comes out is the best. Johan was the best at that shit,
dude.
Because that first 2 steps, he's right on you, and as soon as that ball's out of your hands, he's just absolutely.
One of my favorite.
What's up, Joe?
One of my favorite memories from the Quins was, I think it was the same game. I was on fire that game. The Austin team had a breakaway.
See, you are a good salesman. Salil, did you just hear that? I was on fire that game.
I was.
Self-promotion.
Well, for rugby, if I know I can physically destroy you,
absolutely,
I'm a little bit more confident.
Yeah.
No, but so it was a breakaway. It was on the wing or whatever. This guy was taking off, and I just picked the right line. And it was great because it was right in front of the Quinn bench.
Yeah.
And I just,
yeah, I feel like I remember that one.
And it was just like, but it was funny because like it took so much effort that I don't think I recovered the rest of the game. Yeah. I don't think I was on any other.
Yeah, but they always say the best teams, championship teams, are teams where players do something that's out of character. Mm-hmm. You've heard this before. So like a prop making a try-saving tackle, or like a fly half taking down a number 8 at full tilt, or just doing that little something that's outside of like what's expected of you.
Right.
And those are the best teams.
But it was the team the Quinn's reaction of
into
the
into
your own bench, the entire bench just giving that, whoa.
There's literally nothing better than the camaraderie. And you've played all the sports. I've played all the sports, and there is just something different chemically that happens in rugby that I can't explain when people ask me why it's my favorite, and it's like shooting heroin, even though I've never shot heroin. It's so addictive because the camaraderie of, we're an obscure sport, we're out here, we're not getting paid. We show up on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday to knock the motherfucking shit out of somebody.
There?
No. I mean, I got all those concussions. My family would fucking kill me.
Did y'all play rugby together?
Yeah, we've known each other for like 20 years.
Have you all talked about your origin story, like how you met?
Well, I was at North Texas with your brother.
Yeah, he was with my brother, who we just had on a podcast with with Molly, Mike Engelbrecht, our coach, and so I was helping coach.
Yeah, but then the Quins, we paid a little bit on the Quins,
and then when you graduated, because you were older because of the military. Yeah, and then I recruited you to the Quins, and then you came and played with Quins for I think 2 seasons. I think our origin story was me coaching you as a forward, because I was like, hey, you're so big and strong, we don't need 2 people to lift in the line out. Yeah. So we could put a defender back, and you would just lift because of your and people didn't understand that you had this cheerleading, this whole hoisting. That's a weird. It is a weird thing if you don't know what you're doing.
It's timing,
and you're just throwing motherfuckers up there in the line out, stealing the ball, and then we have an extra defender in the back because we only needed 1 lifter. And I would be always in your ear like, bro, you have to dominate this fucking game. I want to see you put people out of this game. And then I was like, you're coming to Quins.
Yeah.
Because I was injured. Remember? I had shoulder injury.
Yeah. From a voyeur, what do you think is more entertaining? Football, American football, or rugby?
1,000% hands down rugby. The tough thing is that people know they're watching something cool, but it's so hard because there's so many foreign rules. Yeah. And then a lot of times I watched rugby with a group of people after a barbecue over in the Independence Day weekend. And so I was able to sit there for 90 minutes and commentate on the France-England Six Nations game. So it was a rerun. It was played a couple months back, and tell them this is why that penalty. This is why they kicked here. This is why they ran here. And the two main people who were watching were dialed in, and they were like, I'm watching text me whenever you know something's coming on, my cable package. And I was like, I absolutely will. The problem is they have these guys with English accents using colloquialisms and metaphors that we don't quite understand to explain why something happened. And then the viewer is like, wait, what look at the
Muppet on the pitch.
Yeah.
Huh? I would disagree a little bit. From a player standpoint, I think if you choose like American football versus rugby, from a player standpoint, 1,000,000,000% choose rugby. From me personally, from a voyeur, I prefer to watch American football.
Even though it takes 3.5 hours to get through a game.
If you're going to watch a team that you like, like Alabama football, national championship, Super Bowl, I'll watch those things. I don't watch the NFL as much as I used to, just because like I'm not big on the whole politicizing it, and also once players started worrying about themselves versus the team, look at me, I just made a tackle. It's like, bro, you're down 50 points. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
So from a voyeur, I prefer football, but from a player, 1,000% rugby. I think because you could play all the positions.
Yeah, I think that it irritates me so much how much stop-start there is in American football. I don't mind watching it.
I have to pee a lot, though, so it's okay.
It came from rugby. I've just lost a lot of my interest in college and NFL football. It's just tough.
Dude,
I'm having a hard
time. With the new money situation in college, it's going to be interesting to see where college football is in the next 5 years.
Yeah, so Joel Klatt was on The Ticket yesterday talking about how the Big 12 and the Pac-12 are going to merge, how there's going to be two super conferences. Probably the Big 10 and the SEC will merge, the Big 12 and the Pac-12 will merge, especially now that USC and UCLA are jumping ship out of the Big 12 to go to the Big 10. Notre Dame's going to join the Big 10, so who knows? The money thing's weird. I don't even want to get into all that shit. I don't know. Some of these, I do not think that it's ever been fair that universities have absolutely just turned over the fucking money till and you get an education out of it, and you can't even buy your own pizza. I mean, I played on scholarship for a minute, and you can't have a job. You can't wash cars for cash, man.
All of it is... all of it's a scam in the sense that the amateur rules, right, for like the Olympics and whatever, those weren't there to protect anybody. All it was to keep the working man out of the class warfare.
Don't even get me started on the fucking Olympics, man.
But I'm just saying, amateur. So the NCAA and the amateur rules, that all came from keeping it amateur. If you're getting paid for it, then you're not amateur. Nope. We need to protect the integrity of the sport. Whereas it was never about integrity of sports. It was, let's keep the guy that works the coal mine away from the country club playing the football or the soccer or whatever. That's where it came from.
Yeah.
And again, that's where when you need to know history, because if we just acknowledge that, it's like, okay, well then, they should get paid.
Well, times need to evolve. And now that there's the internet, that's why everyone brands themselves, because that's what you do now. I think that social media is fascinating. You really can see the creative side of people more than you ever could. And people who I've had a couple authors on promoted their entire books through social media. I mean, social media is amazing stuff. There's a lot to bitch and moan about. There's a lot of bullshit. We'll see the answers that Elon gets about bots on Twitter.
Well, it goes back to when we were talking about the 50s and 60s, where you have 3 channels, ABC, CBS, and NBC.
Right.
Well, nowadays, you don't have, it's not like, people like to think, oh, you've got TV, cable TV, and streaming services, but they don't include TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Everybody's a media company. Everybody's creating content for entertainment purposes.
Yep.
So you literally have infinite amount of options when it comes to content to consume.
Absolutely. And if you are an artist of any kind, a recording artist, a musician, a public speaker, an author, I mean, you employ an entire crew of artists. You have the opportunity.
Don't get me started on that.
If you are creative and ambitious enough and your shit's cool enough to get eyes on your stuff. And you couldn't do that. You couldn't even do that 12 years ago. You know, so
you had to pay for it. Everything.
Right.
Like, I think the idea of organic marketing is completely, I think if you 20 years ago threw out organic marketing, people look at you like, huh? Like, what are you talking about? And because again, it goes back to everybody being a media company, like how I've said this a couple of times, but because on my journey with media, like it wasn't until we built the studio at Propelio, started doing content for marketing purposes, then the realization that, oh, we can make money doing this. You can make money from well, no shit. People have been doing it for over 100 years, making movies, making content, making stuff for consumption purposes that to make money. And for me, it was like, oh my God, yeah, of course you can make money doing this.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it's power back to the people type, rage against the machine type. I think it's rad. I just think that it is, it's run by big corporations and it is what it is. Maybe it'll diversify a little. Maybe another platform will emerge. Maybe Elon will really pull the curtain back at Twitter and that won't go through and he'll start his own thing. Who knows?
So I think the problem with Twitter is it's like a fake relevancy. Cause like saying 80% of their platform is bots. The people that it affects, they won't care. Because it's the Hollywood, I hate saying Hollywood elites, but like the political class, the ruling class, the Hollywood elites, they use Twitter because it's all relevant to them. It's relevant to Washington, D.C., Twitter is. But like to you and me, like I'm on Twitter now just because I'm like, oh yeah, there's Twitter. Yeah. And
I've never been a Twitter guy.
It's I'm trying to be better about it just because the crypto world's in there. Yeah. But I don't get it. I don't
really understand. I don't really get it either. I guess it's that access maybe that you can at someone
but
if you don't like
though,
them.
Because if I at Joe Rogan with his 12 billion followers, he's never going to see my mention or whatever.
No, but if you're into sports and you wanted to at Bill Walton or you wanted to at Joel Klatt, they might see it. Who knows? Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know there's this weird fascination with famous people.
It's weird.
Yeah. But humans have done that since the beginning of time.
But it's not even fame because take your platform that you have, a micro influencer platform. And I don't mean that demeaning or micro. Hush.
Very nano.
But say you have somebody here in Dallas who watches every episode of your podcast relentlessly, but doesn't know you personally, has never reached out, but sees you in a bar. It's going to be weird because that person's going to be a fan. And for you, it's like, because we're in this room with just us and Sohail, that we don't know the impact. We don't know the reach. Like when we were talking about that 1 million views on TikTok over the course of 2 months. Now, it depends who you ask. Is that good or bad? Like, I don't think people really comprehend how much 1 million is. That's a lot of eyeballs.
I know it.
But
it is like, it's like pyrite. It's like fool's gold. We don't know what it even means.
You don't know the impact, yeah.
Because there's been no half-life studies. We have no idea. All we know is
it's fucking cool,
and you got to keep keep hustling. Yeah. And it seems like I think Thomas Jefferson may have coined this term: the harder I work, the luckier I get. And I think it was possibly Lee Iacocca, Chrysler, right? Lead follower, get the fuck out of the way.
Ford.
Was that Ford who said?
No. Lee Iacocca was as at Ford, not Chrysler.
No, he was Chrysler, bro. Lee Iacocca, Sohail.
He was in that movie Ford versus Ferrari.
One dinner. Well, he may have gone to the other.
Maybe
Ford and Chrysler.
Ford and Chrysler.
Mm-hmm. Was he on both? Okay.
We'll both pay for our own dinners. And I don't know who coined the term "hard work works," because it does. And you can't replace effort. And sometimes you have to put it out of your mind that I really want that result. The result is fine, but getting to the result takes just a lot of fucking mundane, very methodical, difficult, boring, tedious ass shit.
A buddy of mine
Monotonous.
who owns CrossFit Big D here in Dallas. He's also the announcer on the CrossFit Games and all that stuff. He's one of the ESPN guys. One of his, and I'm going to quote him.
Big D energy, bro.
Basically. But it's like, you can't teach, give a shit. You can't coach, give a shit. People either have it or they don't, so it's like, if you, in the hiring a small business, you want everyone to give a shit as much. Like I always say, if I can get people to work 70 to 80% of what I do, then I've got a gajillion-dollar company, because we're going to just mow everything down.
Yeah, the tough thing there when you're
but you can't give a shit. You can't teach it.
No, you can't. And it's in the setting of company culture, it's about setting up that ownership.
Yeah,
like guys like you and me who don't have kids, pretty driven individuals, and we almost feel guilty with downtime. Actually, I was on your ass all weekend asking you, like, almost like an accountability buddy, like, what the fuck are you gonna do that's fun?
Is like working.
Yeah. And to me, working is fun too, but I have to give my mind a rest, and I've realized that after I've crashed and burned a few times. Like, man, you gotta let up every once in a while.
I know you have a construction company, but when's the last time you hoisted sheetrock or framing or did the screw gun type thing?
It's, been a minute. We had a job we had to move, but I know you were sweating.
Dude,
hardcore
my body is still in pain. Like, because I spent 3 days framing out that little section, putting up the insulation, doing the sheetrock, cutting the sheetrock, and then actually painting it, and then also doing the wall itself. And I'm still suffering. Like on Tuesday, 2 days ago, I actually went and I got a massage, a 90-minute massage.
Good for you.
After I left that massage, I was like, I'm still in pain. I went to another massage place and got another 2-hour massage with 4 hands. So two massage therapists. I spent $600 on massages on Tuesday. And I'm still in pain.
Did you at Deshaun Watson for massage
for etiquette
parlor etiquette?
Hey,
tips?
where can I get the extras?
The
extras are illegal.
Can you point to the wall?
That wall's rad
that
as
one?
fuck, man.
Are you on the thingy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I built that. But
Cool.
Deshaun Watson, I don't know. I don't know anything about that case.
Do we have an update on that? Like, how many games is he going to get suspended for? I don't know. They were saying 16, and they were going to negotiate that down to 8, and then maybe they're going to meet in the middle at 12. And did you see Baker Mayfield just got traded to the Panthers yesterday?
But I did see a notice that they were looking for a trade where
Indefinite suspension.
Where they would actually have
has that been declared?
I think. Let me look.
But they were talking about with Baker Mayfield, like they were looking for a trade where they would also have to continue paying for their, like, even though the Panthers are taking them, the Browns are still paying this salary.
Half. Yeah,
what a joke. It's
I
so
was
bad.
on a road trip with a rugby buddy. March when I guess when
I loved him in college.
Deshaun Watson. You like Baker in college?
Yeah. I thought he
that
was
fake underdog story that he keeps going around telling everybody, coming out of Westlake, living in $1 million house. Nobody would give him a shot.
You're reading too much into that.
No, I'm not. No,
I don't know
I'm
anything
not.
about that.
Shout out
I'm
to
saying
Jake
when
Kemp
I love watching him at Tech, and then I really like seeing his success at OU.
Jake Kemp on the Ticket 1310. Go the Ticket. It's a Dallas gem. The Ticket radio station is badass.
I'm never gonna do that.
Baker.
Terrestrial radio, I'm out.
I've never been that's weird. That's terrestrial radio is great. You won't ever listen to KXT 91.7.
Never. Look, if it's not on Sirius XM, I'm not listening to it.
I feel like that's
Sirius XM or Spotify or Audible. That's the only thing
that's such a technology bougie statement that you just. I grew up with
if you want bougie, here's bougie.
Okay, let me hear some bougie.
I only fly first class.
Well, why is that?
Because I'm big as hell. Because I'm a big man, and big men. If I'm flying to wherever, an hour and a half flight, and I'm in the back of the plane in coach, and you're sitting next to me, if you're sitting next to me, you hate life. You would rather me not be sitting next to you. I also would not want to be sitting on top of somebody. So therefore, I'm going to pay a little extra and sit in first class. It's not a bougie thing. It's a comfort thing.
I feel you. I feel the same way.
Yeah, he's a tall dude.
Yeah,
But mine's a width thing.
I just fly on TW Mock's jet whenever I got to go.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And just give him a call, and he's
subtle.
like, yeah. He's like, I'll shoot the Tesla over there and pick you up, bro.
Luckily, I haven't.
No,
really,
not at all.
The last 2 years, the only place I've really gone to last 2 years is Phoenix.
I just go exit row, bro.
You go what?
Exit row.
It's still tight. Still tight on the hips.
Well, I mean, I'm not a small individual myself.
Yeah, but I got some big old hips.
Childbearing.
I got childbearing hips.
If you wanted to be
listen, ladies, if you want a childbear with my hips,
if you wanted to be, what do they call them now? A birthing human, right? When a dude gets pregnant and can have a kid or whatever. Bette Midler just put something out like they won't even call women, like be a woman, take pride in it. They call them birthing.
Well, it's people who menstruate or
right.
People who have uteruses because they're not all women.
What's the term? The new term though? I can't keep up
I don't want to get into it. I don't want to get kicked off Twitter.
Oh, that's the term? People who menstruate?
That's one of them.
Okay. Oh, whoa, shit. There's more. See, everything's getting too complex for me, Sohail.
I mean, it's not that there are trans men who have uteruses who also are affected by women's right issues.
I got it.
Yeah.
I understand.
There's so much.
The back to your sales dilemma. You're going to be reaching out to an email list that you started building when?
I mean, well, truth be told, like I've worked with several companies over the past 10 years, and if you're working anywhere, you should be compiling data, like data for what you're doing, your client list, your whatever, especially if you don't have NDAs. So technically the list has been building since 2012. Now, former employers may think that that's scandalous or, hey, you're stealing, but I've never sold the list. I've never done, I mean, you trade lists all the time, but I believe you should, like, even Sohail should be developing his own database of everyone that walks through there. Get their email, get their whatever. What's that?
Attaboy.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, he's already started. But you should always be networking. It's kind of like to always be closing, because like everybody that comes through your door is a potential client, potential whatever. So the short answer is for a long time.
Your proclivity for networking, for setting up events, was that something that when you started doing it that you enjoyed, or was it just an upshot of I have to do this because this is part of the business?
I hate events. I hate it.
And always have?
It's not that that's not true. I don't necessarily hate it. It's not rewarding. It's not financially rewarding. It's not socially rewarding. Yes, you do get an element of exposure just by nature of being on stage. You're the expert or whatever. But from a coordinating standpoint, it's no one's ever going to give you praise for the thing that you worked your ass off, because of course I'm at the event. It just happens. Events just happen. You show up and everything's there. And if you're good at it, the leadership, they only notice stuff that doesn't work. So if it always works, you're never going to get the praise.
It's an afterthought.
Yeah, you're never going to get praise. So and the typically events that I do, they're not really revenue generating. They're more of the exposure side of things. So it's not rewarding financially.
So there's intrinsic value, not transactional value.
For me,
it's very hard to put a price tag on that intrinsic built-in value.
I continually do them because there is a little bit of money in it, but it's more for helping clients with their business to help their value there.
And that is a service that HB would provide to a client if it was part of, worked into a package, and the client felt as though, hey, an event here or there where I could kind of gather nucleus.
I used to get like at least weekly somebody hitting me up to do an event. And I'd be like, yeah, $10,000. Like, oh, what? And I'm like, all right, cool. And then now it's about once a quarter that people hit me up to do an event.
Explain what goes into creating and putting together, like the event that you do with the Sicilians, TJ, Casey, etc., over at the Grapevine Theater.
Yeah.
What goes into that?
Like, it depends on, the answer is it depends on where you want to start from. If you're starting from, hey, I'm a client and I want to do an event, I would ask, okay, what are your motivations? I'm a little bit different because most of my events make money, or at least are cost neutral. Whereas most events out there don't make money. Most events are a cost. So like, hey, I want to do an event. Okay, what's your budget? And not what's your budget to make that money back. It's how much are you willing to spend to do the thing that you're wanting to do? Me personally, what I do is I'll do an event and like I try to make it to where you have sponsors, you have ticket prices, you have different things that sell to either break even or actually make money.
Right.
You know, so because I'm a little bit, I'm too transparent a lot of times, I'll go out there and say, hey, my events can make money, this and that. So when you come to me as a potential client, you're potentially wanting that same thing. And I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't necessarily work for you, because in order to do that, you need to hire me. And I'm not doing all of this for a couple $100. I have a full team.
Right.
You know, so it's hard to have that. Anyway.
Well,
what I like to tell people, it all starts with the venue. So after you determine what's your budget, what are you trying to get out of it? Okay, where do you want to hold this? Because once you have a venue, that dictates everything. That dictates what the event will be.
So a real estate meetup. When the sickness was out, your meetup at the Virgin was like one of the first big get together in DFW.
I have no data, but you could probably say nationally.
So
like an organized thing.
Yeah. So
I don't want credit for that because I don't want to get arrested.
And I was a sponsor of that one.
Uh-huh.
I had a bunch of my team come to that. So just explain to me what the goal of that is. We've got some speakers in there. Are those speakers making money? Or are they coming and talking because it gets eyes on them and eyes on their brand? Yeah. Is what the speakers are saying so earth-shattering that you can only get that there and you couldn't get that off their Instagram page? Is this a networking and it's fun and it's see and be seen and I haven't seen you in a while and then maybe we'll do some business? Kind of can you from just a novice point of view, what's the point?
From an organizer or from a speaker or from a sponsor or from an attendee?
Let's start with a sponsor.
Okay. And one thing, me breaking it down like that, most people don't break it down like that. Most people don't think in terms of event.
Well, that's why you're on the podcast.
Well, because I thought it was amazing.
I
look at events
HB.
I look at events holistically in the sense that if the speakers are all happy but the attendees hate life, then you have a failed event. If the organizers have a great event but the speakers are unhappy, then you have a failed event. If you have if anybody's unhappy, you have a failed event. So you have speakers, you have sponsors, you have the organizer, and you have the attendees. So you have to find that balance to where no one's ever going to be fully happy, but there's that compromise. So from a sponsor, the reason a sponsor would sponsor one of those events is they want exposure. They want to be able to talk to potential clients. They want to meet people, build their own marketing list so they can retarget them with data, with marketing and advertising. At the end of the day, like say sponsorship is $1,000. Well, how much money are you going to have to spend through other traditional marketing avenues to reach X amount of people that you could potentially reach and have their data from?
Okay, so you broke this down for me the other day when we were looking through the analytics of the YouTube channel. We had somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 or 600 hours, like all the combined minutes of eyeballs on my YouTube content in a 28-day period. And you said, 500 hours, that would be like having an event and speaking for an hour in front of 500 people.
That's how I have always looked at the YouTube efforts. as early as Propelio because of my event background. I look at it going, and this is probably not the right way to look at it, but it's just how I look at it. So if you have 100 hours of watch time, great. Okay. Well, that's 2 real estate meetups of 50 people each. If you have 500, okay, well, that's 10 50-person meetups. And it goes down to how many meetups would you have to go to speak at to get that same amount of attention that you're now getting on YouTube. And that's kind of how I look at it.
Okay, so for the organizers, the people who put it together, the people who hire you, it's to get out, to press the flesh, to see and be seen.
So I alluded to this
network.
earlier. The quickest way to become an expert in a field is to study hard and learn and have experience, or get on stage. And because people are never going to fact check, they're never going to go through and do the due diligence to see if you're full of shit or not. Newsflash, they are. I love my cutaways.
I do too.
But it's
such
just
a
like
fucking pro.
Dude, it's you'd think I own a company or something.
You would think that.
It's and you hope that people that are doing these types of events have some bit of knowledge and are trying to have non-nefarious motivations.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we're all trying to make money. We're all trying to make a buck. We're all trying to grow.
And we're all
most
humans.
most people do events and organizations so they can build their audience, so they can build their list. Maybe they're looking for more investors. Maybe they're looking for capital. Maybe they're looking for deals. So like Donovan, his motivation for doing the event at the Virgin was so he could expand his buyer pool, but also his seller pool, because he's a wholesale shop, and they do a lot of co-wholesales, meaning people will bring their real estate deals to them because they have a much bigger list, helped by having an event, and then they can blast it out and hopefully sell that property more easily than somebody that nobody knows about. Because if I'm Joe Schmo, I have a property and I want to wholesale it, but I only know 3 investors. Those 3 investors are all booked up. Well, what do I do with this property?
The goal of sponsors at an event is obviously, if you're at a real estate meetup, to get everyone to use you. If you're a hard money lender, if you're
it's
a
exposure. It's
transaction processor.
It may seem expensive, but it's a cheap advertising way to actually have in presence, because most of these places, they may be brick or mortar, but people are never, ever, ever going to come to their office to inquire about their business. If they're coming to their office, it's because they already have the business.
Yeah.
They've already secured it. So when you have an event where they can physically talk to somebody and physically get potential clients, that's amazing.
And if you're a speaker, especially if you are high profile or you consider yourself to be high profile, I guess you're going to want to know what the RSVP count is, what the venue looks like, all of that.
Their motivations are the same as sponsors. They usually have a product to sell. They have a book to sell. They're trying to get exposure. Maybe they have their mastermind. Maybe they have a group or something. Join my whatever,
Yeah.
But
Yellow
what
Lambos unite.
Yeah, from an attendee standpoint, I always like to tell people, your goal, if you go to 1,000-person event, your goal is not to meet 1,000 people. Your goal is to have 3 to 5 quality conversations. If you can have 3 to 5 quality conversations, and maybe it's even less than that, then that time is a success. If I go to an event and I have a single conversation where I get either a nugget of information that'll help drive my business, maybe I get a sale, maybe I get a referral, whatever it may, maybe I get a good idea, that to me is worth the time of that event. People too often go to these events and thinking they have to hit everybody. And here's my card. I don't know why people do cards anymore. Like, I have 3 cards in my pocket because I don't wash my jeans.
Cards
much.
are weird.
It's like, I don't know.
I always turn them over, and if it's a 2-sided card, I throw it out because I need the back of that so I can write a reminder like, you need fuel, or go get your prescription, and then
so
I put
you use
that.
business cards as notepads?
Yes, absolutely. I'm a notepad guy, man. You know I am.
Yeah.
So to wrap up, Harper Belmont Media.
Yeah.
If you were to just summarize in just a couple of minutes or less, what you could do for a small business owner, whether or not they're in real estate investing, etc.
Because I'm learning to be a business owner, I actually outsourced this to Michael, and Michael wrote us a pretty solid sizzle. So I'll just read.
Let's read this.
What he said.
This swite geniusness.
Mr. River has stated, Harper Belmont Media specializes in digital media production. We offer on-demand video production services from ideation to the final delivery. From producing interviews, podcasts, commercial ads, to social media content. We customize digital media for your brand that's tailor-made for your audience. You know the power of video for your business. All you're missing is a partner that can transform your messages, and goals into video masterpieces on time and on budget.
That's awesome. Yeah, nice work, actually.
Yeah. What about the reading?
You
was
did
it,
the
was it deep and nice and sexy?
Yeah. I'd go.
I flubbed the messages.
If I was Sohail and you were doing a voiceover for your own ad, I would for sure want a second take. Yeah, or maybe my voice. I don't know. We get real low. If somebody wants to reach you, if they want to reach out, they can obviously hit you on social. But what's a good email?
Ryan at harperbelmont.com. But better yet, Margot at harperbelmont.com.
And how does she spell her name?
Margo.
Right on, man. Appreciate the time. I think Sohail has some shit for us to look at.
Oh gosh, what is it?
Well,
I don't know.
So not to look at, but I was going to say talk a little bit about what.
Yeah, fire it off.
Let's get current events.
This is for clips. We don't have to use it. We'll see how it goes, but
we can use it.
Yeah, use it.
Use it.
Let's fucking go.
Okay, so
it's great content.
Yo,
I have heard you talk about work hard and go get it when we were talking about gas prices, and you've mentioned it on other podcasts, and I totally know what you mean when it comes to like get off your butt, work as much as you can, work as many hours as you can, as hard as you can. But when it comes down to it, that implies that people should move up in terms of their career position, find a way to make more money if they're not making enough money to pay for their gas. But I think we would agree that certain low-paid jobs, like let's say janders or jobs that are very difficult to make a living wage in our economy, I think we agree those are necessary jobs and they don't deserve to live in poverty. So how do you feel about that? What do you think of that? How do you feel about wages when it comes to that?
Well, yeah. So I'm for sure a do-it-yourself advocate. Get off your ass, get a second job. But I do understand what you're saying. Inflation, it hits the lower incomes harder than anyone else. Nobody talks about that. In terms of practical, pragmatic things, we actually talked about this yesterday. If you go on Freelancer, you can find a job on there that pays $20 to $25 an hour for data entry only. So if you have Wi-Fi, you don't have to drive to a job. You can do that. I wouldn't want to do data entry. I get it. That's a boring job. I know that restaurants, service companies, everyone's having a hard time finding good personnel to do work. But to the heart of your question, I understand that my statement is a little bit broad sweeping. Get off your ass. Don't complain about gas prices. Go make more money. I drive up and down neighborhood streets all the time with long, unkept grass. I see guys out hustling, cutting grass. You can get lawnmowers at pawn shops. I probably don't have a wrap my arms around you, wipe your tears away answer to that question.
For sure, and that's not what I'm getting at. But you agree that there are jobs that exist that are necessary, right? Like that aren't you having your own business. Correct, like
100%.
In an institution, you have.
Listen.
In a school, you have janitors.
No.
They work hard. Me and you know, hard work is they work over 40, 50, 60 hours a week. They're doing hard labor, and those wages do not reflect.
Yes, I don't like that. I don't like that there are people that work so hard and they can barely make ends meet. My answer to that, however, goes back to what I just said. There are opportunities. The opportunities abound. If you do not like your job and you're not making money and you can't make your ends meet, but you work hard, fucking DM me.
Yeah.
There are people who will pay more than what you're making.
But when that person leaves their necessary job, someone else has to fill it. And do
but here's the thing is, here's Sohail, because I think I know where you're coming from, but I don't want to say, there's a quote, and I don't know if it's an Elon Musk quote or if it's just something he said, or it may not be Elon related at all, but your pay is a direct correlation to the problem that you can solve. So like a data entry job, maybe it's a low paying job, but it's something that anybody can do. Working at McDonald's or fast food, those types of jobs, they're relatively low paying, although some of them are much like Chick-fil-A. They'll pay like $1 million a year nowadays just because they need staff. The entry level type jobs, it's not a reflection of how much the work is or how hard it is, because I mean, let's face it, like, if you were like on the chain gang breaking up rocks, I know that's not really a job, but say there's a job to break up rocks, the amount of labor that would go into it is tremendous, but the pay doesn't correlate with work ethic or the amount of work it takes to do the thing.
The value you generate.
It's the problem you can solve.
Give me an example of a necessary job that has to get done that doesn't pay well. Okay. My answer to that is not an answer that anyone wants. Fast food's trash. Fast food causes more disease than much of anything else. We didn't even get into nutrition. I was going to make that point about our medical community. So my point there is actually very broad sweeping. If people don't want to work at fast food joints, let the fast food joints go out of business. That would be my
pay more money.
Pay more money. Yeah. Charge more for the fast food, and then the fast food business will go out of business, because a lot of people buy fast food because why? It's convenient and it's
I was going to say it's
cheap.
It's cheap, and there are food deserts. There are people that struggle with food insecurity. Those people who are working those jobs that don't have time to cook, and they're raising large families.
Yes, and I have very little sympathy for people who tell me they don't have time to cook. I do have a ton of sympathy for people in food deserts who then can't get food because fuel prices are so high. To me, the solution to that comes down to the private sector. That's churches and charitable organizations who know there are needy communities, and we have them all over Dallas-Fort Worth, who go in and help out. That should not even be something the government's involved in. That should be private. That should all be handled by those good Samaritans. I help out. It's a couple of those. Austin Street Shelter is one of them. So I don't know if that answers your question about the food deserts.
I understand the argument there. That's a very well explored libertarian argument. All I can say to that is charity statistically hasn't worked.
I mean, I think that everyone could be more charitable. I think that a lot of people have lost trust in some of the larger charities. I would argue, or some would argue, that it needs to be regulated at a level that's not private. But that's where I think you take away the ability for the American to be the American. I help my brother because I know that if I'm on a knee and I'm struggling, that American's going to come back and help me. And does everyone have that in them? Will everyone pay it forward? I don't think so.
Not have like daddy tell you how to do that, but some would say that might be necessary.
I'd like to interject because to build on what you were saying about, the fast company, well, they're trash and they should go out of business. In this scenario that we're bringing up, if you have a fast food company and say there's a labor shortage, but the reason there's a labor shortage is because they don't pay enough. Well, they don't pay enough because historically, it's an entry level job, and they've been able to get by with people that will do that job for that money. The reason there's a labor shortage now is people are not willing to do that job for that pay. So
the pay hasn't increased with.
That's what I'm saying.
That's right. And so economies of scale should solve the problem.
Let me get to the point I'm trying to make, though, is so true capitalism would be, okay, that fast food joint, that widget company should go out of business, or they find a way to make a better product so they can afford to pay better wages and treat their employees better. If they don't, well, they go out of business and then everybody's screwed. So that to me is true capitalism. Now, paying entry-level people more just because we want to or we can or we should, that's a different argument. Because that's, as long as there's a pool of people willing to do a thing for a price, there's no reason to raise the price.
Right, and that's what I mean by
or
economies
the pay
of,
wage.
Yeah, economies of scale. If supply and demand don't match up, something's got to give somewhere. I mean, that's boiling it down. That's oversimplifying it. But if there aren't enough people to work at McDonald's, then McDonald's has either got to infuse with cash, which they're one of the biggest real estate investors on the planet, or they could they could use technology. Why do you even have to have people in there manning it? They're pretty much giving you synthetic food anyways. Why couldn't AI?
That was always
the
Fox News type stories they would immediately post about when you have somebody trying to unionize or they're on strike because they want more wages. The next story they would show is, look at this fast food over here that now they have robots. Look what you did. You wanted more and now you don't have any.
Right. Costing people jobs. So I have a very difficult time sympathizing with someone who isn't going out looking for a problem to solve.
Right.
Brad Lee, love him or hate him, I think he's got some pretty good value he puts out. He said, if I lost everything today, everything, I would be up at 5 a.m. and I would sell everything I had so that I could live for a couple of weeks, and I would go around and I would just look for problems to solve. And then I would start a very simple company and I would go around and start. So Sohail, to answer your question, I think there's a lot of people who want an easy solution, and grinding out a living is not fun. There's a lot of people who do it. I know a lot of single moms who have several jobs. They have several side hustles. They do whatever they fucking have to do to make it happen. It's
Life's not fair.
There's no easy answers to any of this.
Right.
But I will tell you as a human have control over very little.
Right.
But if you control absolutely everything you have full control over, your life will change. When are you up in the morning? What do you put in your body? How do you control your effort? And do you put in full effort? And are you looking for, there's so much information at the tip of our fingertips that there wasn't even 10 years ago, that you listen to some of these guys pontificate and articulate, and they don't sound sympathetic to the plight of the poor.
Right.
But they say, look, if you really want to, you can find out what plays successful people run, and you can go run those plays yourself. But what ends up happening is, to me, because I've seen it, because I get the DMs and the text messages. Hey, how'd you do that? Hey, what did that cost? Hey, and then I break it all down. And the answer that comes back is not the answer that they wanted. The answer that they wanted is, I pressed an easy button, I sat back, I watched Dr. Phil reruns, and I'm sitting pretty. And that just doesn't fucking happen. And it doesn't happen for anybody. So those aren't answers that most people want to hear, because they're not soft and cuddly answers.
Well, let me jump in here real quick. Just, life's not fair. A perfect example of that, is idiom? Is that the right word? What's an idiom?
Yeah.
Idiom's a good word for it.
It's like in a pickle.
Yeah. So the perfect example of life's not fair is a guy named Sinnerman. There was a documentary about him. I think his name is Rodrigo. Anyway, so this guy in his 60s recorded an album. He was a musician. He recorded an album, and it kind of went nowhere. People at the time were saying he is the next Bob Dylan. He's more prolific than Bob Dylan. So then he recorded a second album, complete failure. A lot of people would argue it was because of racism. He was Mexican, trying to do rock and roll, and the music industry just shunned him. Somehow, after he failed, he got into construction, and he worked construction for the next 60 years. 50, 60 years, because we're, the next 40, 50 years. Somehow those two albums made it to South Africa.
Yeah, I remember this.
And then in South Africa, he is bigger than the Beatles. He's bigger than Elvis.
Yep.
Like, his music is so prolific in South Africa. He is a voice of a generation. My point to saying all of this is life's not fair. Here's a guy that you would think he's the most famous person in South Africa, and he's never even known he's famous over there. And in South Africa, they don't know he exists because they all thought he committed suicide. There was all these rumors that he committed suicide or how he died, lit himself on fire on stage or whatever. But my whole point to bringing this story up is, excuse me, is that's such a tragic story, but it is what it is, you know? And now, I mean, he's played a couple concerts and he thinks it's cool, but it's like his whole life he could have been, you know, something else, but it's not. He was a construction guy.
Yeah.
Working hard.
Yeah.
Okay,
Getting paid nothing.
That was good. We could go on about that, and we will. But one more thing, talking about Independence Day, I'm curious just your take on, so July 4th, or as Ryan said, second Independence Day, as we recognize it, but there's a movement and there are a lot of people saying that because that wasn't the day all Americans got independence, there were enslaved people still.
You're talking about like the 699
Juneteenth, right?
Right.
You're familiar with Juneteenth, when basically that's when everyone in this country, every human was.
I don't agree with
gained
that.
Independence. Yeah, I'm curious what y'all think.
I think they have the independence to have that opinion, and I think that Independence Day might mean something different to me than it means to other people. And I think that's fine. And I think I'm going to take pride in it. It's always been my favorite holiday for a variety of reasons. Among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Other people who don't agree with that have the right to not agree with it. And I can have an opinion about that, or I always can reserve the right to not have an opinion about the opinion that they have, which is a very stoicism.
Right.
That's a Stoic quote. Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus said that.
Answer from you.
I will say,
I
will say that when people disrespect the flag, when people say disrespectful things that I hear, that I deem disrespectful about the country that I love so much, it does bother me. However, I temper that with the fact that the reason I love this country is because you can say what you want to say and you don't get taken to a gulag and shot through the head for it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the beauty of the country. I will also say that I'm never going to be shy about my pride in being an American. I'm never going to think that it's cool if a certain people group is oppressed. But I also think that people need to do their own research about why things happened when they happened.
I'm not talking about disrespecting anything. I agree with you there. More so the idea of celebrating maybe.
Yeah, I can answer that. Yeah. Oh, well, I could give you my answer. That's not the answer.
Yeah, fire it off.
I understand the logic in it, but if you look at the Declaration, it wasn't about white men. It was all people. But the problem is people are humans and humans are flawed. Therefore, women weren't included.
Right.
Minorities weren't included. But the document itself, they were. It's the people at that time that didn't. Again, you can't look at past through the lens of today. And so too often people try to do that. They're like, let's cancel Christopher Columbus because he's an asshole. Of course he was an asshole. Everybody back then was an asshole.
Thomas Jefferson did many things that are
right.
Columbus didn't. He did not discover the Western. Yeah, he did. To the West, he did. Yeah. Was there already people here? Absolutely. Did Vikings come here? Absolutely. Now I think there's evidence that Africans were able to make it over here. People have been here before, but it was Christopher Columbus that discovered it for the Western civilization. Does that mean he wasn't racist? No, he was an asshole. He was racist, whatever.
So that's the soundbite I wanted. I like that because I was going to counter with, some would still say that there are people subjugated and oppressed today. We were talking about prisoners, prison population. It's like
that's a whole other thing.
Oh, our prison population in this country is an absolute travesty. It's preposterous, the amount of people who are incarcerated in the United States of America, which is supposed to be the land of the free and the home of the motherfucking brave. Well, that's you go to prison.
That's
for
what
10 years.
That's what Europeans would say. Is like, garbage. Oh, you say you're free, but you have the highest incarceration.
Our incarceration rate is bullshit, and my simple broad stroke answer to that is follow the fucking money.
Yeah.
And if you do just that, and if you only look at issues through the lens of follow the money, it sounds oversimplified. But if you only apply that axiom to hot button issues, it's quite interesting what you find.
So you want to see something funny? Keep it on Jess. And to add to that, let's just bring it up of Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah, man.
Exactly.
I don't
follow the money. Why is that?
R. Kelly, locked up, throw away the key.
Yeah.
Ghislaine Maxwell on suicide watch and 20 years.
And let's not publicize anything.
Let's not talk about her father. Let's not talk about Mossad. Let's not talk about anything anywhere. Let's not talk about who was on the flights. Hell, if I didn't know what that guy was up to and he offered me a flight on one of his jets, I probably would take the flight. If I got to that island with that blue and white building and I saw what the fuck was going on, I'm damn sure I'd be in prison for life for some of the shit that I would do out there. I don't understand.
I know where you're going with that, but I think you need to expound on that so it's not.
Yeah,
I'd be in
a little double.
I'd be in prison for
killing people,
for violence against adults, not children.
Yes. Right.
I do not understand why the mainstream media does not shine a light on that, except that if you follow the money, you will see why child rescues of 49 children in Georgia and 101 children in Ohio get maybe a blurb on a ticker across the bottom of a mainstream media screen, but you don't hear anything after that. Why that is blows my mind. I don't understand it. It's a reason why I don't watch the news anymore. I get my news. I do my own research, but the Ghislaine Maxwell situation is also preposterous.
Right.
And it's a commentary on where we're at as a society.
I threw up this Chomsky quote because it's so.
The mass media serve as a system for communicating messages and symbols to the general populace. We don't need to read it, but
I'll read it real quick. It's their function to amuse, entertain, inform, inculcate individuals with the values, beliefs, and codes of behavior that will integrate them into the institutional structures of the larger society. In a world of concentrated wealth and major conflicts of class interest, to fulfill this role requires systematic propaganda. And that's
there's always propaganda.
Right, but he's saying like what you're talking about, mass media, follow the money. It's all connected.
And I know we're wrapping up, so I just want to throw this out there. I am a firm believer that not all, but I'm a firm believer that most of the conflict that we have, our cultural conflict, whether it revolve around race, LGBTQ, gender, sexism, Me Too, all of this is a distraction of classism. Because if you look at historically, again, we talked about history and why history is so relevant. What brought down the Roman Empire? The rich got too rich, the poor got too poor, and the poor finally said, fuck it, let's revolt. What brought down the French Revolution? The French Revolution was the rich got too rich, the poor got too poor, the poor said, fuck it, let's take it. Let them eat cake. Do you know the expression, let them eat cake?
Absolutely.
Do you know where it comes from? And why?
Educate us. Yes, but educate us.
So Marie Antoinette, they were like, the people are poor. They're starving. They have no food. Her response is, well, let them eat cake, because she just assumed, well, you don't have any bread? Well, just eat cake, because cake is bread as well.
Out of touch.
Completely out of touch.
She never said that, but that's the...
Okay,
No. I like the quote. I just wanted to.
Screw you. Let's call him out. But my point is like that expression is used wrong so all the time. Yeah. But the whole point of that was she was so out of touch that, well, if you don't have bread, just eat the cake. The Russian Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution, the rich got too rich, the poor got too poor. They took over, killed the czars, Anastasia, all them. And fast forward today, the rich know this. They're not stupid. So how do you keep the people from realizing that they're too poor and the rich are too rich? Keep them arguing amongst themselves about stupid stuff. I'm not saying it doesn't matter. Obviously, everything matters to somebody. But in the general, your right to do this or that is secondary to being able to eat and feed yourself.
I think it would do a lot of people a lot of good to just turn TV off for a week and just see what they can see what they could get done in that week.
And social media.
Because Grey's Anatomy's not paying your mortgage, because Roger Goodell in the NFL, they're not buying your groceries, and because The Simpsons aren't making your dinner, man. That's on you.
We just end by saying, wake up, America. Wake up.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man.
Awesome.
Thank you. Good stuff. 2.
A double.
Wow, that end part was very uncomfortable. Thanks, man. All right. That was awesome. It always is. Talking to Ryan's very easy. I would highly recommend that if you're looking to scale your business, increase your profit margins, that you hit Ryan up. He's a very friendly cat. He's very, very knowledgeable. Don't let him tell you that he's not a good salesman. I have enjoyed my experience with Harper Belmont. I highly recommend them to other driven, ambitious entrepreneurs that I know, people who are looking to take their business to the next level. It can be time consuming to a degree to create content, but I highly recommend it. I highly recommend Ryan. I was his first client. I believe in him and his company and his team. Love everybody on his team. Hope you like the podcast. I really enjoy shooting the podcast. It's fun for me. I'd love to know if you've got someone in your life who you think would make a great, interesting conversation on the podcast. DM me on Instagram. I'm at Jess from the Northwest, or drop a comment below. Connect me. I'd appreciate it. I hope you had a good time listening on this one. I'll see you on the next one.